Oh, this contact. And per usual, this is how I sit. Don't you hate it when you put in your contact and want to wear dailies and it's just like bothering you and you're like, I paid too much to take this out, so I might as well deal with just one being a little irritating. Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For today's video, we're going to be talking about managing a project and just how the schedule typically would look like. Don't mind me if I'm like touching my eyeball. It's because this contact is but anyways, back to the video. Today I'm just gonna pretty much show you how the steps I take in a project, so from the start to the end. Let me go ahead and open up my notes so we can just go ahead and get started. So I use this app called Notion. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but I'm hoping to do a video on like apps I use and just things I incorporate into my daily basis for organization, keeping track of things. But I love this so far. I've been using it for about a month now. Okay, so to get started, before I actually do, I want to mention that like I use kind of the structure. That's a better way instead of managing a project. I use this structure in my previous job. It was very similar to this, and I also got feedback from my friend who actually does residential projects, and she kind of gave me her schedule of how they work through things, and I kind of just blended both of them because I mean it might depend on the type of the category that you may work in, but yet you can apply it to, I would pretty much say, anything. But this is currently what I have and what I'm using for this residential project. Also, another video I'll like be going in more detail about like the different stages as I go through them too, because it's my first project. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see it in play. And with that being said, again, this is what works for me. There's different companies that might do things differently, of course, and I mean there can be all these little different steps in between and whatnot. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and somehow place things in here so it's easier to pause and read if you need to, if I'm talking too fast. But yeah, so the schedule that I typically go through, I'll go ahead and just name all of the steps that I have here listed. So I go with initial client meeting, I have the first review, I have second review, third review, a drawing package, AndGC Specifications, construction, and installation. So that's what I have as the main categories in this structure, and let's go in detail with each of them just a little bit. So starting with the initial client meeting, and I call this informational gathering. Here I have to include site viewing, previous informational documentation about property, design ideation, and contract signing. So with this, I usually meet the clients in person and like talk to them about what services they would want. Again, this might vary. Some people might just want demo, some people might just want, again, if it's a new build, kind of finding out that type of information, just what the project is even about. Site viewing is very important. If you're going to actually be working with this person, you want to see what conditions you're working with, and then again what their idea, their vision is for this project. You want to have any documentation that just helps in case, you know, throughout this project if you need to know certain things, you want to have that at hand. And then I have contract signing here. This might be split into two different things, because after you see all that, you might want to take your time to think about if you actually want to work with this client, and just make sure everything aligns with what you're able to provide and what the client wants. So then you might do a second meeting and then actually have them sign the contract, and then you can negotiate as well your pricing, again, what services you're providing, and explaining how you work and all of that and what the client is in charge of. With that being said, I can also show you in a different video how I created my personal service agreement, and kind of go through that as well, but that could be for a different video. So yeah, that one's just an initial meeting. Now moving on, I hope the person who is mowing their lawn or doing some yard work isn't too loud in the background. But next was the first review, which I call the conceptual design. This includes 2 to 3 conceptual designs based upon clients' wishes and designers' knowledge of interior design. A presentation will entail layout, options, material finishers, and furniture. So this is kind of just a concept of, again, what the client might want, what you might kind of want to design, and also what the client wants, incorporating those 2 things. Again, this is why you have different options, so you kind of get a grasp of the direction you want to take. With this, again, different vlogs I will set up, but I created a presentation because I think that's very important visually for the client to see what you are thinking of, because you can think of one thing, but if you can't explain it, it's not going to work out very well for the client, and they might not think that you're able to provide, again, what they want. And this, again, when I wrote this as well, this was for a new construction build, but say you're doing a demo thing, you might, again, have things already, documentation, and then going based off of that. So it just depends at what type of project it is and what stage it is too. But yeah, with that is just kind of gathering inspo, just sketching out a few things, space planning, all those little details too, so you're able to present something and get feedback back. I do have here material finishes and furniture. You can kind of leave that to a different step, but again, depends where the project is at. If you want to just at least start getting a general idea, you want to gather information from literally everything, just a little bit, not get too overwhelmed in like details, but just get a general idea. If you know the client says they want this for sure, make sure you have that noted, you know, because they're going to continue to repeat that, and you don't want to like seem like you're not paying attention to, again, what they want, their needs. And then here under this, also after the first review, I have revisions, because it's important to take in their feedback and then just give them a revision and see like, okay, is this the general direction you're going with? And then if they agree, you know, you move on to the next stage. Excuse me. And if not, make revisions again. And then, but you also want to keep the revisions only to about 1 or 2 before going into the stage, because you don't want to like continuously be on like this one stage and not get anything done. So that's why you got to make sure you're listening to the client. Next is the second review, which is schematic design. This is the stage that I'll be following after my revisions for my residential project. But this is to include any updated revisions to chosen conceptual design and preliminary FF&E and GC specifications for budgeting purposes. With this too, the reason why I'm saying with revisions, you want with those layout options that you provided to just choose one at least, or if they're not indecisive about one or the other, again, that's why you have revisions, and then you make them kind of make final decisions, because you don't want to be stuck at that stage for like ever and be wasting your time, because it's all about adding more and more detail throughout these stages. So with that, again, I have FF&E and AndGC specifications for budgeting purposes. If you're handling budgeting, again, the client is usually gonna have a budget. You want to gather a general idea of what things are gonna cost, because you also don't want to design something the client isn't able to afford, because they're just gonna be disappointed and they're gonna be more upset, because we're talking about finances and you know, you don't want to break the bank for them, because they're not gonna wanna work with you again. So yeah, that's where you get a general idea of what everything will cost, and specifications, again, general idea, because you can change these things later down the line. Like if it's a chair that maybe they don't want later in a few months, or they don't like it, whatever, you know, get just a general idea of what that chair would cost, or just a general dining table, or keep it in a budget. Like say we're only about to spend $50 on one chair, so if you choose to find another replacement, it has to be $50 or less, you know, so then it's not as hard to go over the budget. So things to just keep in mind. So again, these are just to set it in place to get an overall budget for the client. And then with the second review, you have revisions again. If there's any changes that they dramatically want to make, you want to make them here. And then just making sure you go into the next stage, which is the third review, which is the final design. And this is to include finalized design. Presentation will entail 90% documentation needed to build a 3D model. I personally have found it, because I worked in SketchUp for this project already, and it's just a preliminary model, but it helped a lot with more of space planning, and then for my clients to actually understand rather than like a visual presentation, because I noticed like I'm able to explain it like front of them because again, I did a presentation, but I also have this model already, just to get a general idea of like space planning. You need walkways, you need a certain amount of measurements, a certain amount of feet for measurement, you know, all that, because there is still slight restrictions. So they were able to see that, and it's something for them to keep as well, so if they want to like go back and like maybe they thought of something else, they can refer to something. But I did find that like the 3D modeling is easier for them to see how you would walk through a space, like where things are, and to easily just, you know, move this here or change that up real quick, and just for them to understand. So if you want to do a preliminary sketch beforehand, go ahead and do it. If that's what's working, then like again, see how your client is taking this information in and what seems easier for them too. But with that, I just wanted to do 90% documentation needed to build the 3D model, just because then, you know, that's the pizzazz. They finally get to see the final product, all the materials and everything together. So it's pretty cool. Like obviously that's the fun part of it. And with that third review, again, there's revisions you can make. And then next stage is the drawing package, which again is the construction and interior documentation. Like although you're doing all this beautiful, you know, presentations and all that, you want to have the actual documentation that you need for it to get built. So with that, I have to include floor plan, plumbing layout, electrical, reflective ceiling, furniture layout, elevations, and any other documentation required upon request. So with the drawing package, you have all these different things that you want to include in it. It depends on how much information you want to entail, but obviously the more information you have, the more likely that this project will get built how exactly you want it to look like the smallest details, like, you know, you want all of that so it just comes out a lot more like how you want it. Because even the contractor and like the workers might, like, if you don't have the information jotted down, then they might build something and then it'd be like not what you had envisioned. So again, more detail the better. But with that might take a couple of weeks to draw up. Obviously that is a lot more time consuming. And once you have the drawing package, we have the FF&E and GC specification. This is for budgeting purposes. I have here to include furniture fixes and equipment. That's what FF&E stands for. And general contracting documentation for estimated budgeting, GC. This is again that goes with the drawing package as well, but again it helps just make sure everything is in place for the proper budget. Then lastly, once you have all that and it gets approved, then you would have the construction, which is the building. It says to include approved drawing package and FF&E and AndGC specifications, client to independently source builders, workers for preceding project. So with this project too, since I am freelancing and doing this on my own for the first time, I do not want to handle any of the sourcing pretty much to do the work. In my previous job, that person as well did not source, did not actually do any of this on her own, like source the people. Like obviously you know people and you can recommend, but she did not herself go asking people to get the job done type of thing. She let that to the owner or the clientele. So with that, I kind of want to do the same. Like they'll have all the information they need and they can get different estimates from different people. That's the beauty of all this. Like once you have the drawing package and the FF&E and GC specifications, you can just hand it off to different people and be like, hey, can you give me an estimate? And that's how you get the best result. And then you can choose quality work and all that, and then just kind of hire the people and be like, all right, it's a go. Get to building type of thing. So that's how I decided to do this as well. And then lastly is obviously the fun part, the installation. So if you're doing this as a new build, it'll take probably months to get it from the floor, you know, all the way done. And with that, I just have the final stage. Like it's being so loud outside. As I said, to include furnishing interior and to take final images of the project. This is where I come back into the project. Of course, I want to check up on the project throughout it, but this is where I get to go inside and just make sure everything looks the way it should be. So that is literally the final stage. And of course, taking pictures, you can take your own, you can hire a photographer, whatever it may be. For this project, I'll probably do it by myself because I have photography background too. So that is literally everything. How long have I been talking for? 2 minutes? Not bad. But that is pretty much the whole structure that I have, layout that I have for this whole project. And you can again apply it to any project, I would say. for the most part. You might have little things you might need to add here and there, but that is how I would explain to a client how I am working and how things will go about. I talk so fast. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because now I want to start uploading my vlogs about each of these different stages, so you guys can get a little bit way more of an insight and seeing it in progress. So I hope this is very helpful again, and if you have any like feedback of like maybe what things I could include or maybe things I am missing, because again, this is just a general idea, but yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and anyways, looking forward to uploading those vlogs and talking more about this project because I haven't uploaded anything. So yeah, I'll see you guys till next time. Hope this was very helpful. Bye.
Sitting in silence, we still feel the vibe, and you could not say a word, and I know what you just decided. We'd be right in the same wave.